What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and you're watching our college football channel. It's time for my Week 5 playoff predictions, and we do have a change from last week. I learned a lot more about some of these teams, and I had to kind of eliminate some teams from our playoff thoughts. And so let's just get right into it, as we are now, again, heading into Week 5. Here is the bracket. And number one seed for me is not going to change. I've still got Georgia as the number one team. I know they struggled against Kent State, but we've still seen them against Oregon, against South Carolina, against good competition. They've looked like the best team in the country. Now, if the struggles continue, if they don't look great against Missouri, then maybe I'm going to start to be a little bit concerned about Georgia. And until they play a big game, maybe we won't know for sure if maybe there was a little bit of a fluke in those first two big wins over Oregon and South Carolina. I don't know, but I still believe Georgia is the best team. Stetson Bennett has proven that he is a great quarterback. They've got so much talent, both sides of the ball. I've still got the Bulldogs as my number one seed, and I've still got Ohio State as the number one seed. They definitely, if anything, they convinced me that they might be the best team in the country against Wisconsin. That offense continues to just get it done. One of the most explosive offenses in the country by far. I mean, they can do so many things. They can run it, they can throw it. The defense is getting better, improved from last year. I think it's safe to say that. I've said this before, though. We don't know if they're a great defense until we see them play a great offense. But they're a good defense, and they don't have to have a great defense if they can score like they can score. You might get into a game where someone could slow them down a little bit, and you might need the defense. But I think they might have the defense to do enough to where they could possibly challenge to win it all this year. But I do think they win all their games. Michigan going to be the biggest test, but they get them at home. I think they cruise to 13-0, and they take that number 2 seed. All right, number 3 for me, the Clemson Tigers. Got a big win over Wake Forest, and it's not just about Wake Forest and that win, because I do still have some questions about Clemson. I still think they probably lose a game this year, but I don't see them losing in the ACC championship. So now that Miami just does not look very good, and maybe they get things turned around, but right now Miami just doesn't look like a good football team. And I don't know if Pitt's good enough. So I don't see a team out of the Coastal potentially beating Clemson in the ACC championship like I did. So even if they do lose one regular season game like I originally predicted, I don't see them losing in the ACC championship. So with one loss, conference champion, I think that is going to put Clemson in there at number 3. And I think we're going to see the exact same thing for number 4. That's USC. I think they will lose a game, most likely to Utah, but I think they will win the Pac-12 championship. A lot of people think that this team is in trouble because they struggled against Oregon State. But look, Oregon State's a good football team. Now, I was surprised that they didn't score more in that game, but their defense continues to get a lot of turnovers, play really opportunistic football. And so for me, USC is still the favorite in the Pac-12. Even if they lose a game, I still think with the name brand, even though they are in the Pac-12, it's still USC. I think they will have enough, even with a loss, to get to the college football playoff. Depending on how the other teams are, I mean, if it's a one-loss USC versus a one-loss Big 12 champ, I think you still probably see that Big 12 champ get in. But right now, I just don't see any one-loss Big 12 champions. I just don't. I think that conference is going to beat up on itself. Like I predicted in the preseason, I know I got on the Oklahoma bandwagon after they beat Nebraska and thought that they could be a playoff team. But now it's back to what I thought it was going to be. The Big 12, all those teams are just going to beat up on each other, and we're not going to see a playoff team out of the Big 12 unless maybe Oklahoma State can get really hot. Texas now out of that equation as well. So I think USC gets in there at number 4. So this is my new playoff prediction. First time I've had these 4 teams in here. We've had Georgia, Ohio State, and USC, but I don't think I've had Clemson in here at all. And again, it's not necessarily about Clemson as much as it is about Miami, and that's why I've made that switch there. All right, so how about the other contenders? For me, I think you'll have 2 other teams that are in consideration at the end of the season. I think Michigan is sitting there at 11-1, one loss coming to Ohio State. If they lose to Iowa on Saturday, though, that could change, and then Michigan kind of gets knocked out of this. That's going to be a tough one. I don't think they're going to go in there and win that game easily. So I'm looking forward to that one. Should be a good game. And then Alabama, I'm looking at the schedule. Arkansas, LSU, Ole Miss, Tennessee, all on the road. I just don't know even if Alabama is a top 5 team. I don't know if you can win all 4 of those games. That's just a tough schedule, 4 tough games on the road. And right now I still would pick Georgia in the SEC championship. So that is why I have Alabama with 2 losses and I have them not making the playoff. I really want to see how they play against Arkansas. If they blow out Arkansas, that's going to tell me that, look, the Texas game was a fluke and this team is good enough to maybe run the table and win all these games. And then maybe we see Alabama back in that playoff field next week. But really want to see what they look like against Arkansas. Really only the second quality team that they've played this season. And like I said, I think the Big 12, they're going to beat up on each other. You know, maybe you see a 1-loss NC State sneaking into this conversation. I don't think we're going to see another 1 or 2 loss team out of the SEC. So these would be the teams that would be next in line based off of my predictions and how I think the rest of the season is going to go. Now let's go back to the playoff bracket, and I'll give you my prediction. So we start with Georgia versus USC. I just think USC is going to be outmatched in this game. Georgia too good on both sides of the ball. You know, USC definitely going to have to lean on some turnovers if they're going to have a chance in this one. I think Georgia wears them down in the second half, though. I'm going to go with the Bulldogs. And I've got Georgia moving on to play in the national championship. And then it's Ohio State versus Clemson. I still believe that Ohio State is an elite team. And, you know, we had some questions after the Notre Dame game, but I think Ohio State is as good as we thought they were going to be. That offense really explosive like we expected. The defense improved like we expected. And so I think they're just a little too much for Clemson. Clemson will play them pretty tough, but it's just this Ohio State team is too good in my opinion. So I'm going to go with Georgia versus Ohio State. And there is potential, if we see this playoff, there is potential that we will see 2 blowouts in the semifinals like we have so many times. I'm looking forward to hopefully having some good semifinal games maybe this year, but we'll see how that plays out. Georgia versus Ohio State in the national championship. I'm starting to believe in Ohio State a little bit more as you see that offense just look the way that it does and you see the improved defense. I think they can play with Georgia. I think this will be a good game. I think it'll be a great national championship that comes down to the fourth quarter. But I think the experience of this Georgia team, especially at quarterback, Stetson Bennett, I think his experience in these big moments will be enough. I think the talent's still a little bit more on this Georgia team. Experience edge is there. Talking about a team that just went to the playoff, just won it all last year. And so it's a close one for me. I think it will be a good game, a really close game, but I'm going to still say that Georgia wins this game. I think I could possibly change my mind as the season progresses on these two teams, just seeing how they get better. But as of right now, like I said, I'm still kind of leaning towards Georgia in this one, but I'm not feeling as confident as I did the last couple of weeks. So Georgia versus Ohio State, still my national championship game, and I'm still picking the Georgia Bulldogs to go back-to-back and win another national championship. Who do you have in your 4? Who is in your playoff field? Give me your picks down in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more here on the SG1 Sports College Football Channel.